You are listening to the podcast of New Life Church in Wayland, Michigan. Our longing is to see 0 people in our community living unchanged by Jesus. We are a church navigating the messiness of life together in community. One of our core convictions is that everyone is welcome, no one is perfect, and anything is possible. I hope you know there is a place in the family for you here. For more information on gathering times and location, check out our website, nlifewayland.org. But for now, I hope God speaks powerfully to you through this word.
Well, good morning. It is so good to be with you guys this morning and worship together. If we have not had a chance to meet yet, my name is Brad, and I serve as one of the pastors here. And we are in week 2 this week of a series called Overcommitted, where we are looking at the rhythm of life that Jesus calls his family to. And so we have a companion devotional, I talked about this last week, that goes along with this series. We have copies available in our lobby and on our website. So we encourage you to take one of these on your way out today. You can work through them with your small group. You can work through them around your dining room table or alone in your time with Jesus. And so we encourage you to go deeper and work through that with this series. So today we're going to be talking about being overcommitted to everything but our homes. And when I was growing up, one of the most formative rhythms that I had as a kid was what I've come to call Fridays with the Karens. Now, what is Fridays with the Karens? My mom worked every single Friday, and so as kids, my brother and I would alternate babysitters. And so on some weeks, we would go to my Aunt Karen's house. And then on alternate weeks, opposite weeks, we would go to one of my best friend's mom's houses, whose name was also Karen. Hence the name Fridays with the Karens. And each of these homes had very distinct rhythms from each other. They were very, very different from each other. Like going to my Aunt Karen's home had a very distinct rhythm. She lived in downtown Grand Rapids in the hood. Yes, your pastor has some street cred here. I grew up on the ghetto. No, I'm just kidding. And so there were rhythms there. Like every Friday we would go to the Goodwill, and I apologize, I'm a little sick today, but we would go to the Goodwill discount store and go shopping. We would have Kraft macaroni and cheese and Pepsi in front of the TV watching The Price is Right. Bob Barker, spay and neuter your pets, guys. We'd go outside on the trampoline and jump on the trampoline with a sprinkler underneath it and drink water out of the hose and get beat up by my older cousin and go to church league softball games on Friday nights. I mean, growing up at Aunt Karen's house was peak 90s childhood glory. We didn't care about food dyes. We didn't care about drinking water out of the hose. We didn't even care if we got some teeth knocked out, okay? It was amazing. That's Aunt Karen. Going over to the other Karen's house, it was a very different experience. See, this Karen was more of the, like, I run the HOA, can I talk to your manager kind of Karen? And so her house was very, very regimented. She lived in the suburbs and had a perfectly manicured lawn, and every Friday was the same exact rhythm. The menu on Fridays was always peanut butter sandwiches, Granny Smith apples, and white milk to drink. We took naps the same time every day. I got in so much trouble at that house all the time, constantly lectured, constantly in timeouts. We played on their perfectly manicured lawn. Everything about it was very, very structured. And the point is, what I learned as a kid is every house has a normal, right? Every house has a rhythm. Every home has a rhythm of what it means to be normal. My Aunt Karen's house had a normal. HOA's Karen's house had a normal. Your house has a normal. And what is considered normal is actually one of the most important things about any household. Why? Because a home is shaped most by what is considered normal. Normal doesn't just shape our schedules, it ends up forming our hearts. And it doesn't really matter here in this place what your house or your home looks like. I mean, for some of us, we live alone. For some of us, we still have kids at home. Some of us are single. Some of us are married. Some of us are empty nesters. But the question is, no matter what home looks like for you, the question this morning is, what is normal in the place you call home? Like, is laughter normal in your home? Is the silent treatment normal in your home? Is forgiveness normal in your home? Is the presence of Jesus normal in your home? Is love normal in your home? Is explosive conflict normal in your home? Is apologizing normal in your home? I mean, we could ask 1,000 different questions about what is normal in our homes. Why? Because few things shape a house more than what is normal, what is considered normal. And I brought some stats with me today that I want to share with you because I think if we were to kind of bring an average of what normal looks like, there's some pretty striking truths about what normal looks like in so many people's households. Like, for example, did you know that only about 10% of Christian families read the Bible regularly together? 10%. In other words, it is not normal for most families to be in the Word on a regular basis. 62% of working parents say they wish they had more time with their kids on a regular basis. Get this one. This was the craziest one to me. 88% of youth, like students, not kids, students, say faith is more important to them when they see it modeled consistently in their home by their parents. So I want to ask you again here this morning, what is normal in your home? Because a home is shaped by what is considered normal. What we're going to do today in the scriptures is we're going to actually contrast two different families, two different people in 1 Samuel is where we're going to be. And before we go into the text, I want to set up the story with you because these two families had a very different normal from one another. On one hand, there is a woman named Hannah. And Hannah is someone she's infertile. She's barren, and she's been this way for years. And so from the outside looking in, when you look at Hannah and when you look at her family, the assumption in a place like Israel over Hannah would have been because you can't bear kids, there must be some kind of sin lingering underneath the surface that God would punish you in that way. That was the dominant belief system of that culture in that time. So externally, Hannah is very low on the social totem pole because of this. And then you contrast that with a guy named Eli, who is the exact opposite. He is a high priest in Israel. He has spiritual authority among the people. He is someone who outwardly looks like he has it all together. He is, in many ways, a pastor of the community. And I want you to see the contrast between these two families as we look at this throughout this sermon and what is considered normal in these families. So starting in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 9 through 14, this is what it says. After they had eaten and drunk in Shiloh, Hannah rose. Now Eli, the priest, was sitting on the seat beside the doorpost of the temple of the Lord. She, Hannah, was deeply distressed and prayed to the Lord and wept bitterly. And she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me, and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. As she continued praying before the Lord, Eli observed her mouth. Hannah was speaking in her heart, only her lips moved and her voice was not heard. Therefore Eli took her to be a drunken woman. And Eli said to her, how long will you go on being drunk? Put your wine away from you. So right here in this text, you can see how profoundly misunderstood Hannah is. She's literally praying, and the priest thinks she's drunk. But not only that, like Hannah, man, she's in a place of deep emptiness in this text, isn't she? Like she has an incredible husband named Elkanah who loves her and who adores her. But his other wife, Peninnah, her sister wife, is able to have kids. And this woman, Peninnah, she literally mocks Hannah and taunts her for not being able to have kids. So not only is Hannah dealing with this kind of internal wrestling and this internal struggle and this internal battle, but even in her home, she is being taunted because she can't produce life. I mean, Peninnah just sounds like the perfect name of somebody who would make fun of somebody, right? Like I'm just kidding. Okay. Anyway, sorry. I make really stupid jokes when I'm sick. Some of you are like, when you're sick, you make stupid jokes all the time. The point is, Hannah is empty when we meet her. She's profoundly empty. And yet there's something really powerful about Hannah, because in her emptiness, she comes before the Lord. She brings her emptiness to God. Like some of you know the emptiness in your home that Hannah knows. Whether it's an empty spot in the bed next to you, or an empty crib down the hallway in the bedroom, or an empty seat around the table. Some of you, man, you know the emptiness that Hannah is experiencing in her home. And what is so remarkable and what is so profound about Hannah is that emptiness doesn't lead her towards bitterness. It actually drives her to further faithfulness and devotion and dependence on the Lord. Don't miss that. You take a look at what she says in verse 11 as she is weeping bitterly. She says this, and she vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life. See, I don't believe that Hannah is making a deal with God, like if you do this, then and only then will I do this. I believe what Hannah is doing in this moment is she is demonstrating that her home is already an altar of worship to the Lord before the breakthrough, before the promise comes through. And you read about that earlier in chapter 1 here, that Hannah and her husband, they were devout and faithful people, that behind closed doors, their lives were marked by devotion and love for their Lord. Their normal was worship. Their normal was sacrifice. Their normal was dependence and trust on the Lord. That was Hannah's normal. I just want to ask us this morning, can that be said of our homes? Even in the midst of emptiness and pain, even in the midst of unmet longings and expectations, can it be said that what is normal in our home is that our home is an altar of worship to the Lord? Like, is it normal for you to pray in your home as a regular rhythm? Or is that just reserved for tragedy and for emergency? Is it normal in your home to trust God with your finances, even when things feel tight, trusting that even before he comes through in that area, you're going to step out in faith, just like Hannah? Is it normal in your home for the Bible to be open and read? I remember one of the most annoying things as a kid growing up is my parents insisted that we read the Bible every single day after dinner, and I hated that rhythm as a kid. It felt mundane, it felt monotonous, it felt really boring, and I will tell you, that simple rhythm is one of the reasons why I love the Bible so much today, because they were actually willing to lead our family through this and make it really normal that as a family, we were going to read the Bible. And it was just going to be a part of what we do. Is it normal in your home if somebody were to peer in and look at the rhythms in the life of your home, would they be able to say your family, your home, your marriage, your singleness, you are more dependent on God or more reliant on self-ability and self-reliance? What is normal in your home? So as Hannah's story goes, eventually she does get pregnant. And she ends up giving birth to a son named Samuel. And I want you to see Hannah's reaction to the Lord after she gives birth to Samuel. This is what it says in 1 Samuel 1, 27 and 28. This is Hannah speaking. For this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition that I made to him. Therefore I have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is lent to the Lord. And he, Samuel, worshiped the Lord there. In other words, she surrenders her entire parenting journey to the Lord. She surrenders her entire home to the Lord. Now that's Hannah. And Hannah's an incredible hero of the faith. Like, if you are going to have a baby girl, Hannah's a great name to name a child. Like Jezebel, not so much. Hannah, great name to name a child. She is such a powerhouse of spiritual authority and devotion in her home. But then there's Eli. And Eli is actually quite different than Hannah. See, on the outside looking in, like we said already, Eli, he has the authority, he has the position, he has the power and the influence in Israel. But take a look at what the author of Samuel says about the house of Eli. Like, take a look at what happens behind closed doors in Eli's house. Starting in chapter 2, verse 12. Now the sons of Eli were worthless men. Some translations say they were scoundrels. Their names are Hophni and Phinehas. And the custom of the priests with the people was that when any man offered sacrifice, the priest's servant would come while the meat was boiling with a 3-pronged fork in his hand, and he would thrust it into the pan or kettle or cauldron or pot, and all that the fork brought up, the priest would take for himself. This is what they did at Shiloh to all the Israelites who came there. Now, if you read that text and you're not familiar with kind of the practice of Israel and the sacrificial system, it may not make a lot of sense why that was such a big deal, because part of the offerings that were offered to God were reserved for the priests, for the religious leaders. It was the way in which they made income and were able to have a livelihood. So it's not wrong that some of the portion of offerings is reserved for the priests. But what these guys are doing, what Eli's sons are doing, is they're taking it for themselves. Like, imagine if after church today, I am not going to do this, okay? But just imagine for a moment, I told myself, Brad, you pushed through. You were not feeling good, and you preached a really good sermon. So you're going to go ahead and you're going to put a glove on and put some Scotch tape, double-sided tape on it, like the sticky bandits from Home Alone, and you're going to reach into the offering box out there, and whatever you get is yours, and you're going to go have a nice ribeye at Ruth's Chris after this. I have a feeling some of us would have some issues with that, and rightfully so. It is wrong. That is exactly what the sons of Eli are doing for the offerings that are brought before the Lord. But not only that, the text goes on later and says they are exploiting women at the tabernacle. So these two boys are exploiting their power and their position in order to self-enrich and benefit themselves in a very disgusting and corrupt way. And so Eli eventually goes and he has a conversation with his boys about this. The problem is Eli kind of takes like a gentle parenting approach to this conversation. Like, boys, I see that you are stealing from the altar and you're exploiting women in the tabernacle. Can we talk about your big feelings together? And God is like, no, Eli. Like, these boys are utterly corrupt. And you may look good from the outside, but what's happening behind closed doors is a mess. And this is what God says to Eli after Eli does his whole gentle parenting thing. And no, the text does not say gentle parenting. That's the Brad Vanderson translation. This is what it says in verse 29. This is the Lord speaking to Eli. He says, why then do you scorn my sacrifices and my offerings that I commanded for my dwelling? And listen to this next part. And honor your sons above me. Ouch. Eli, you honor your sons above the Lord by fattening yourselves on the choicest parts of every offering of my people Israel. You see the contrast between these two families. You see the distinction the author of 1 Samuel is making. Hannah, her life starts with nothingness, and yet she is so faithful and so devoted to the Lord even in her emptiness. And Eli has the position and has the power, but when you open the doors and see what happens behind closed doors, God is not pleased. Like, Eli idolizes his sons. Hannah surrenders her son. Eli's spiritual presence in his home is marked by passivity. Hannah is marked by spiritual authority. Eli is indifferent to the sacrifices that are being stolen from the Lord. Hannah surrenders and sacrifices her entire life to the Lord. Are we seeing the distinction between these two people, between these two families? In chapter 3, listen to this. In chapter 3, Eli is described as his eyes growing dim, which is a way in which the text is saying Eli is spiritually blind at this point in his life. He can't see God. He can't see where God is moving. And Hannah's son Samuel, what happens to him in chapter 3? He hears the voice of God, a voice Eli himself cannot hear anymore. So you know this question is coming. But I want you to hear from me. I'm asking this of myself and my own home before I ask it of anybody else. When you look at your home, when you look at what is normal, when you look at the rhythms and habits of your household, regardless of what your household looks like right now, whether you're single or married, widowed or divorced, whether you have kids at home or are empty nesters, whether you have young kids or teenagers, the question is, are you more of a Hannah in your home, or are you more of an Eli in your home? Which one are you? Are you more of a Hannah in your home, where your home is marked by spiritual rhythms of devotion to the Lord? Where your home is marked by faithfulness even in the midst of emptiness? Where your home is marked by the Word of God saturating everything you do? Like, is the Bible open in your house every single day? Or are you more of an Eli? Where it's like, yeah, we're just going to outsource parenting to Netflix. We're going to allow screens to run the household, and we're going to eat our mac and cheese in front of Price is Right. I'm just kidding. There's nothing wrong with that once in a while. Are you a Hannah or are you an Eli? And maybe you're sitting here thinking to yourself, man, I am more of an Eli than I am of a Hannah. And can I just tell you right now, like, that is okay to be in that spot today. Our natural drift is to move towards being an Eli. In fact, spiritual passivity is the very, very first sin of Adam and Eve. Adam is a spiritually passive in his own household, with his own marriage, with his own wife. Like, spiritual passivity is the drift. But I wonder what it might look like if today some of us made the decision and accepted the invitation of God to rewrite what normal looks like in our home. Because here's the good news. It's not too late. It is not too late to rewrite normal in your home. And here's the thing. All of us know that parenting and marriage, it is not a perfect equation where Hannah's faithful and then her son goes and anoints kings. Like, some of you, man, you have been faithful parents. You have been Hannah's, and your kid still walks away from faith. And they still want nothing to do with Jesus. And I think even in here, you see like that emptiness that Hannah brings before the Lord. Like, she allows that to drive her into further devotion to the Lord. It can be overwhelming looking at our world. And I don't know about you, but like I have genuine fear for the world my kids are growing up in. Like, it scares me sometimes. And I can't control all of the variables. And neither can you. But there's a detail in this story, and I hope this one little detail, this is where I want to land on today. I hope this one little detail provides you profound encouragement and hope this morning. No matter if your life has looked more like an Eli than it has like a Hannah, I think this one detail in the story has a profound invitation for every single one of us. And you see the detail in 1 Samuel 2:18 and 19. There's a very little thing that Hannah did regularly, and this is so powerful. Samuel was ministering before the Lord, a boy clothed with a linen ephod. And his mother used to make for him a little robe and take it to him each year when she went up with her husband to offer the yearly sacrifice. That line there, and his mother used to make for him a little robe. That is a profound act of devotion. It is a small act of devotion. What Hannah is doing year in and year out as she makes this little robe for her son is she's doing a couple different things. Number one, she is showing her faithfulness and trust to the decision she made years ago to trust her son to the Lord. Every year as she brings the little robe to Eli or to Samuel, she is trusting God for the calling on Samuel's life. Every year, it's like she's re-upping in this little, small, seemingly insignificant way. She's re-upping her commitment to be devoted. And I believe here this morning, church, that every single one of us, we have a little robe thing that we can do in our home regularly. We can't control outcomes, but we can control faithfulness. We can control devotion to the Lord. This last week, like for many of you, it's been a really heavy and hard week, hasn't it? Just in so many different ways. You know, my 7-year-old daughter came home from school on Thursday, and she's a second grader, and her class had gone through a lesson on September 11th with like pictures and stuff, and it is so weird, like for those of us who are a little bit older in the room, like I remember where I was that day. I was in gym class in 8th grade. Yes, I'm aging myself here. Some of you are like, wow, he's really young. Some of you are like, wow, he's really old. And so I was sitting in gym class and remember the loudspeaker, and like my kids are growing up in a world where that is now taught as history. And I was so struck hearing my little 7-year-old daughter talk about September 11th in a way where, like, as much as I want to, I can't shield my kids from the reality of evil that exists in this world. I wish I could, but I can't. And you can't either. Some of you have teenagers who literally saw a man get murdered on TikTok this week. And you don't see something like that, and you don't witness something like that without it doing something deeply disturbing to your soul. And what I was reminded as we talked to our kids about some of these different things in an age-appropriate way this week is that, yeah, I can't shield them from the evil that exists in the world, but you know what I can do? I can be the type of father, the type of husband that pursues little robe moments of faithfulness. Like I can sit with my kids and grieve that 24 years ago, planes hit the Twin Towers and the Pentagon and crashed in a field in Pennsylvania, and talk about how there is an existence and a presence of evil in this world. Like we can have those little robe moments with our kids. We can have little robe moments where we sit and we grieve and we lament the evil that exists in the world, where we have a righteous anger like Jesus towards the evil that exists in the world. But if that's where it ends, like if that's all that ever happens, all I am is a Hannah who wallows in her emptiness and stays in that place. But if I use even the worst tragedies as opportunities to point my kids back to Jesus, if we use even tragedy to show them that the gospel of Jesus is an urgent thing to be lived out and talked about in our homes, I just want to speak to you. Some of you, maybe you live alone and you're like, how does this apply to me? Maybe you have a sibling who is far from Jesus. And for you, it's like there is an urgency that you're feeling for the gospel, and you just need to have a conversation with that sibling about Jesus, and you need to pray for God to give you opportunities to speak to that sibling about Jesus, to display the love of Jesus to them, and to talk about who he is and the difference that he has made in your life. You know, my other daughter, she's growing up, and she's going to be 10 this year. And we're starting to think as parents through conversations about sexuality and body and all of that stuff. And I don't want the chaos of our culture to be discipling her in that area. Like, I want to be able to, my wife and I walk with our kids in that area. You know, this coming October, Josh and I, we're going to be teaching a 7-week course on Monday nights on Christian sexuality and what it actually means to have these little robe type moments in our families, in our homes, and deep devotion to the Lord, even in this hotly contested area. See, I believe every single one of us, we have a little robe moment that we can put into practice in our homes. Maybe it's praying around your dinner room table, not just in tragedy, but daily. Maybe it's reading a psalm with your kids every day before bed and asking them to highlight their favorite verse in the psalm. Little robe moments. Every single one of us have little robe moments that we can incorporate into our lives. I want to just close with a piece of encouragement for you. If your life and your home is marked by more regret than more hope at this point in your journey, here's what's so powerful, and therapists and psychologists will say this. They say what is even more important than the rupture that happened is the repair and the way we go about repair. In fact, Dr. Dan Siegel, and this is echoed in by a lot of different therapists, is the repair of rupture is perhaps the most essential of all relationship processes. Meaning, it is never too late to start praying for your kids. It is never too late to start sharing about Jesus with your sibling or your coworker or your spouse even. It is not too late. New Life Church desperately needs Hannahs to rise up in our homes. Men, I want to call some of you out. It is time that men in our church stop putting the burden of spiritual authority on their wives and expecting them to sink under that weight, but actually carry it alongside them. It is time to rise up. We need a whole new generation of Hannahs that are willing to take this seriously. You cannot control the outcome, but you can start where you are right now with little robe acts of faithfulness. And so how we're going to close here this morning is that we're going to invite us as a church into a time of very deliberate and intentional prayer over our homes. And so where you are, go ahead and just stand up. If everybody can stand up in the room. And what we're going to do is we're going to just out loud read this prayer out loud together. And here's the thing. I don't have much of a voice, so I need you to read this with passion and gusto, okay? Can we do that? Yes, I love it. All right, let's read this out loud together. Lord, awaken my home from passivity and fill it with your presence. Today I choose to walk in the spiritual authority you have given me. Thank you that you are the one who restores what is broken and repairs what sin has damaged. Make my home an altar of worship so that generations will know you.